No matter your age, your plan for retirement can start today. From the News Channel 5 Network, this is the Retirement Report.
Good morning. Welcome to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. All right, we talked last week about the myths of investing. In fact, we talked about those myths being stock selection, track record investing, market timing, and of course then the importance of cost of investing. Now just to recap briefly, because today we're going to talk about the academic approach to investing. And understand something real quick on this. I want to get clear. One of them is there are over 33,000 funds available today. Now you think about it, that's about 10 times as many, about 3 times as many individual stocks that are being publicly traded. All right, so now how do we get into determining out of 33,000 mutual funds how to construct a portfolio? One of the most valuable, if you will, or most admired fund families is Vanguard. It's one of the most popular. I'll get the word out. One of the most popular fund families in Vanguard. And why is that? Well, Vanguard has started out with John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, and one of the things that they did then was they instituted what are called index funds. Now, index funds are funds where it's not about active management. And we talked about active management, right? That's those myths about being able to pick what stocks are going to outperform the others. So when we look at the S&P 500 index, that's the 500 largest companies in the United States. They make up 70% of the equity in the stock market, outperform about 90% of equity mutual funds year in, year out. And we're going to get into more about the research there, as we talked about all that last week. So with Vanguard, they got into indexing. Indexing meant we're going to just buy that S&P 500 index. Active management, and that's also, by the way, index funds, that would also be a means of passive investing. In other words, we're not going to be constantly moving it around. We're going to pick those funds and we're going to stay with those funds. Asset allocation, and this is the academic research, as we talked about last week, makes up 92% determinant of what your return is going to be on your portfolio. So let me be clear with that. It's not about stock picking. It's not about market timing, when to get in and out of the market. We covered all that, right? It's not about track record investing, looking at who did well last year and thinking that particular mutual fund's now going to do well for years to come. It doesn't work that way, and we've shown the research. All right, what works is asset allocation. And that's where the passive investing and indexing comes into play. So this is the academic approach, is what we're going to cover today. So let's start with an investment approach based on 50 years of sound academic investing research and accepted financial theories. This is a disciplined approach that seeks to capture market returns while managing volatility. And I'm going to show you then how this works, all right? So the components of the free market portfolio theory, number one is understanding that free markets work. What does that mean? Free markets, think about it. If I go to Kroger to buy a gallon of milk, or if I go to Publix to buy a gallon of milk, it's going to cost about the same, right? That's the free markets. That's one example of how the free markets work, that competitiveness, but also the fact of understanding the supply and demand part of it. The markets are going to want certain things. If like government policies that try to force us to buy things, okay, like very low mileage, or low economic cars that don't use much fuel. Some people like to do that, and that's fine. There's a market for that, but the demand for it will determine what the supply should be. The government shouldn't be pushing that out there through different government programs. Same thing, some people are going to drive that gas hog SUV and four-wheel drive and all the rest of it, and because they like those kind of cars, and if they can afford to pay for it, there again, supply and demand, all right? This is their choice. And that demand, all right, is where we want to, the supply in a free market system is going to put that money to work where it's going to be used, right? Where it's going to be needed, as opposed to having a bunch of things that people don't want sitting out there rusting because somebody else determined that's what it should be. So understanding free markets and the competitive marketplace, that things are priced fairly. Now, next part is modern portfolio theory. Here we're going to talk about Dr. Harry Markowitz, Nobel Prize winner in 1990, the father of modern portfolio theory, if you will. And we're going to talk about the work that he did, in fact, in winning that Nobel Prize in economics, and his research, and of course, it preceded the Nobel Prize by probably 20 years, going back to the 70s. And then we're going to build on that with the next factor, which is the three-factor model, and that's Dr. Eugene Fama's model that was developed, again, building on the work of Markowitz since 1990, and he won the Nobel Prize in 2013 in economics for his research in equities. All right, now, next slide is leading academics. So here's a picture of the dude. Now, they usually have, when there's a Nobel Prize winner, you'll hear about, like, Dr. Markowitz winning the Nobel Prize, but there's his partner in that helped him was Merton Miller, co-winner, if you will, of the same. And their work in terms of, again, going back 50 years, their work in determining what is known as modern portfolio theory. And we're going to get into showing you the efficient frontier and how this concept works. Some other leading academics whose ideas form the basis for free market portfolio theory would be Rex Sinquefield and Roger Ibbotson. They put out tremendous amount of research and continue to do so. Ibbotson in particular is one of the great resources we use for stock research still today. All right, and then leading academics whose ideas form the basis, again, Dr. Eugene Fama, as I mentioned, who won the Nobel Prize in 2013, and the co-winner with him, Kenneth French. The work that they did in terms of putting together a portfolio and understanding how these work, you know, I can sit down and put together, for instance, put all the ingredients out to make a cake, but if you don't know exactly how to put those ingredients together, in what order and what measure, it's not going to work. And that's a metaphor we'll use for portfolio construction. As I mentioned, there are 33,000 mutual funds to choose from. And let's say I wanted, you know, I like Vanguard as one of my favorite fund families, and DFA is another one. Now, in saying this, in Vanguard, there are 125 funds. There are a lot of actively managed funds. In fact, I'm looking at maybe about 10% or less in some instances of the funds that Vanguard has that I would actually use in a portfolio. So I got to eliminate 90%. Does this sound familiar? Remember when I've talked about fixed index annuities? There are 1,000 different annuity products. By the time we get it narrowed down, all right, we have more like about 1 or 2% out of the 1,000. Well, when it comes to that fund family, I might have 10 or 12. Now think of that in the sense of 33,000 different mutual funds. Out of 33,000 mutual funds, again, I would be down to fractions of a percent in terms of which funds I would use. Because what filters am I going to use first off? I'm going to get rid of anything that's a load fund, meaning if it has a sales charge, an upfront sales charge of any kind, automatically that's gone. Actively managed funds, that's another one. If I've got a large cap growth fund and it's got 80, 50, 80, 100 different stocks in it, I automatically eliminate it because I know that I'm going to go with the S&P 500 index. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for ways that I can capture these asset categories that have been put out there by Dr. Fama. All right, so we're going to talk about this more. We're going to dig down in this. I'm going to show you how to construct a portfolio, how we do it at the office, how I've been doing that for the last 10 or 12 years, how the research on this goes back 50 years. The proof is there, all right, about what works. It's out there, okay? There's a way to do this based on the academic research that we have, a proven system of how to invest to get the market return with the least amount of risk. And then there's going to talk also about a very important part of that, how to determine what your needed rate of return is so that we can construct that portfolio to fit your personal needs, all right? So we're going to get into that and more. Join us here. We'll be right back on a Retirement Report.